Up and down the country, we see sad cases of badly neglected and abused clutches in a complete state of disrepair. And it's generally just owners' ignorance or bad habits that have led to this problem. We could play soft violin music. I could flash up an emergency number on the screen for you to call and donate £1 so our team can go and intervene with all this abuse that's going on. Or you could just watch this video and pass this video on to anyone in your family that has maybe got some of these naughty habits. And together we can reduce this problem. Now, clutch replacement is quite expensive and it often necessitates other work. You should probably think about doing the flywheel at the same time, for example. And because it is such a big job, many people put it off, and a clutch should last for 100 or 200,000 miles with careful driving. But I have seen instances of a clutch being completely destroyed within 6 months on a brand new vehicle just because of bad driving habits. In this video then, we're going to look at these bad driving habits that will destroy a clutch far more quickly than you would expect from its lifespan. We're also going to look at ways of diagnosing a clutch to work out if the clutch is actually on its way out, if it is failing. And then we're going to talk about clutch replacement options, because a lot of people are talking about performance clutches or uprated clutches, and we're going to look at the pros and cons of those. Before we get into the bad habits, let's just think about the clutch. Essentially, you've got two friction surfaces. One is engine side, the other is wheel side. When the friction surfaces are together, the power flows from the engine to the wheels. When the clutch is disengaged, the wheels are free to move and the engine is free to move. They'll have no effect on each other. Now, understanding that state of it being either on or off is quite a straightforward concept to grasp. But a lot of drivers hold it at biting point where it is neither on nor off. It is slipping. The wheels, for example, are moving more slowly than the output from the engine. And that is just building up heat and friction within the clutch mechanism. And we're just going to talk about some of these habits that cause problems with the lifespan of the clutch. The clutch is under stress when it is not fully engaged. So the first habit we've got to talk about is just resting your foot on the clutch. People do this in traffic sometimes. They put the clutch firmly down to disengage the engine and they don't select neutral. They will just sit there depressing the clutch pedal, and the whole mechanism is under constant stress during that period of time, and that is going to weaken the clutch release bearing. If you're lightly resting your foot on the clutch pedal, that is probably even worse, because that is this situation where the clutch is slipping. It is neither biting nor free, and you're just causing a lot of heat to build up within the clutch mechanism, very quickly wearing down the clutch plate surface. And if you're on a hill, that is even more dramatic. Although the car's not moving and you're not using particularly high revs, all of the energy being expended holding the car in that position on that hill is going to the clutch, causing the clutch to prematurely fail. That then really is the second thing, holding the car on the clutch. When we're on a hill, we're waiting to come out at a junction, we keep at the biting point, we call it. That's the point where the clutch is just about making contact, but not quite. There is a little bit of slipping going on. That'll build up a lot of heat in the clutch friction surfaces. Every time we use the clutch, there is an element of slip. Now, the big problem is where we hold it at that slipping point. When we move off, we need to vigorously disengage the clutch. It's a progressive movement. It needs to be quite positive. If we draw out that clutch engagement and disengagement process, we're extending the amount of slip that goes on. And I've been in cars with people that have done this a lot, and the clutch has started to judder. The car is starting to shake. Too much heat has built up on the clutch friction surfaces. The whole system is really straining to cleanly engage and disengage the clutch mechanism. It's key then to be smooth, to use just enough revs. Now, just enough revs will depend on what we're doing. Are we pulling away very quickly? Are we doing a racing start? Are we on a hill? Or are we just in town with stop and start traffic? We need to choose an appropriate gear, an appropriate rev to use from the engine, and engage the clutch smoothly and crisply, not extending that biting point as far as we can. Often in urban traffic, we're creeping forward, and a lot of drivers will creep forward using the biting point on the clutch. They'll keep the clutch engaged, disengaged at the slipping point to slow up the arrest of movement. And it's much better to just stop the car, wait for a gap to form, and move slowly into the gap. And you will generally find the traffic ahead of you will also move slowly, and you can use the gap as a buffer so you're not using the clutch. And that'll actually help the cars behind, and you'll be doing your bit to keep the traffic flowing. Another big problem that I see quite often is flat foot shifting. There's probably other names for it, but the general concept is when you're changing gear, you keep your accelerator foot fully down. So the engine is producing as much RPM, as much power, as much torque as possible. Now, the effect of that is pretty dramatic on your clutch, because the engine is spinning at a much higher RPM and it always has to settle. Remember, if you're changing up a gear, the RPM needs to drop, and if you're pressing the accelerator, the RPM will increase and the clutch will have more work to do bringing the RPM down and matching the speed of the engine with the wheels. People do this for maximum performance because they feel it gives them a boost. They can feel the car jolting each time they change gear. That really is just a sign of a struggling clutch. And it's more subtle because in everyday driving, a lot of drivers don't lift off the accelerator when they change gear. And although that's not as bad as keeping your foot fully depressed to the floor, it does still mean that the clutch has a lot of work to do matching the road speed with the engine speed. And those clutch plates are going to start to slip a little while everything meshes in properly. Think about your change points as well. Downshifting, going from fourth into third, you'll notice that the RPM level rises. It might jump from 2000 RPM to 4000 RPM. It's the clutch that's doing all of the work. All the wear and tear is going on in the clutch. Whereas if you're doing 4000 RPM and you release the clutch at that point, the engine and the wheels are moving at the same speed. The ratio is correct, and there's not much scope there for the clutch to actually slip. Learn to match the engine RPM with the speed of the wheels that you're going to be doing after you've changed gear. It's going to be different in different cars. You need to get used to your car, but most drivers can do this within a measure. You might be 500 to 700 RPM out in your estimations at first, but after a short period of time, if you're conscious of this, you will make much smoother gear changes, and that will dramatically reduce the wear and tear on your clutch. Accelerating hard in high gear at low speed also puts a lot of extra wear on the clutch. The engine is putting out a lot of torque and the wheels are moving very slowly, and you've got a situation there where the clutch is torn between the slow moving wheels and the high torque output of the engine, and again that's going to build up a lot of heat on the clutch surfaces. The key is to downshift, to use an appropriate gear to the speed, because lugging doesn't just affect the engine, it also has a big impact on the clutch, particularly where we're using full throttle and trying to push a lot of torque out to very slow moving wheels. When we're parking the car, again, there's that tendency to hold the car at biting point, to creep very slowly, and we really shouldn't do that. Everything we've discussed is avoiding the biting point, avoiding that clutch slip from happening, and if that's a habit we've got when we're parking the car, that is going to be a problem on the lifespan of our clutch. Learn to allow the car to roll, to depress the clutch, to disengage the clutch mechanism, to allow that momentum to carry the car through, and then to re-engage the clutch at another point. So we're giving little bursts of energy, and in most cars you don't even need to do that. You can control the speed of the car, but some engines, some cars, some setups, and maybe on a hill, you might need to think about engaging and disengaging the clutch. Just think about the clutch as binary. It's either on or off. You can't hold it at that neither on nor off, or you'll end up with a Schrodinger's clutch situation where it's probably dead, but it's probably also still just alive. Launching hard, that's where we use a lot of high torque initially and the wheels aren't spinning, or they're just about to start spinning. Again, that's the same situation we've already discussed. There's a big differential there between the speed of the wheels and the speed of the engine, and the clutch is going to try and smooth that out, so it's going to have to slip. For a fast launch, it's better to progressively add the power, to allow the clutch to engage at fairly low RPM, low speed, and then build the power as the engine supports the grip that the wheels are providing, and you can pick up speed nice and quickly without wheel spin, without clutch slipping, without extra wear and tear on the clutch. Clutches nowadays have a fairly complex set of hydraulic components that take your pressing of the clutch pedal down to action at the clutch mechanism itself, and that can degrade over time. Keep an eye on the fluid levels within the hydraulic system, keep an eye out for leaks, and if you notice the clutch sticking or not releasing properly, that is an indicator there is a problem somewhere in the clutch mechanism, and that is going to accelerate wear and tear on the clutch, because you're doing your best as a driver to engage or disengage the clutch, but the mechanism is not working crisply and smoothly, and it's creating a situation where you've got a long slip or a long biting point. The big problem in the clutch really is heat. Things degrade more quickly when they're hot, and that is certainly true of the friction surfaces in the clutch. The friction surfaces can actually glaze. They become smooth and shiny, and you don't want that on a friction surface. It's not going to do its job if it's become glazed and smooth. How can we then test the clutch is working properly? Well, there's a couple of very simple tests that we can do. I don't recommend you do this regularly because it does add wear and tear on the clutch itself, but it just puts stress on the clutch so you can ascertain whether it is biting and whether it is doing its job properly or not. Park up, engage the handbrake, put the car into third gear, and then release the clutch with a light throttle. Leave the handbrake on. If the car stalls, your clutch is good. If the engine keeps revving and the car doesn't stall, that would indicate that clutch is starting to slip. Now, you might have a situation where the clutch is just weak, and you can test this best on a hill, doing a hill start. The steeper the hill, the better, and the more it will show up any little weaknesses or inconsistencies in the clutch or the clutch operation. Park on a hill, engage first gear, and release the clutch as normal. If the engine starts to race but the car hesitates, you've got a problem with the clutch, and you will probably notice that horrible burning smell. When your clutch has failed, it can be impossible to select gears. Now, I say that, but a good driver can still use the gearbox. You need to be very careful in your rev matching, and you can crash through the gears. Now, going from third to fourth or fourth to fifth is relatively easy. Going from second to first or first to second is much harder. It's all down to the ratios of the gearbox and the chances you've got of getting the teeth to mesh correctly. If you can get the car rolling just a little bit, then you've got a good chance of being able to select second or third gear and just gradually pick up speed. And that can often get you to a situation where you can limp home. I did that for about 500 miles, including a stint on the M25 where my clutch cable had gone yet again, and this time it had gone on the way home. It was frustrating, but it was possible to drive the car without using the clutch at all. And at first, yes, I was crunching the gears a little bit, but by the end I'd become very efficient at matching the RPM and anticipating the road ahead, so the car never actually came to a complete stop. It was the scariest, most frustrating journey of my life, and I certainly don't recommend that. If you've got clutch problems, get them sorted out. If we're replacing the clutch, then should we go for a performance clutch? Because that's something I did on a previous car. I had a Rover 220 GTI. I uprated a lot of things. I modified quite a few things on it, and I thought I would go with an uprated performance clutch, which basically comprised of a very heavy duty spring and fairly heavy duty friction surfaces. Now, I found that hard to use in daily operation. It was very much on or off. You didn't get much feel. It was quite difficult to pull away smoothly. The other problem I had was I was still using the standard clutch cable, which had a plastic fastener that connected it to the clutch release mechanism. And that clutch cable kept snapping. I went through 5 or 6 clutch cables within the space of a couple of weeks, and it wasn't until I uprated the clutch cable that the car was actually reliable again and I could confidently use it. And a lot of that was just down to my choice of clutch. In most situations then, stick with an OEM spec clutch. Don't go for an ultra high performance one unless you've dramatically increased the power output of the engine. And by dramatically increased, I'm talking about 20 or 30% more power than standard. And even then, most OEM clutches can cope with that quite happily, as long as you're very progressive in the way you use the clutch and it's cleanly engaged and disengaged. There's a big choice of exotic materials, different friction surfaces, different patterns. The release plate can be divided into 8 or 16 sections or somewhere in between. There's a lot of variety in there, and that doesn't have a great bearing on the effectiveness of the clutch. Don't pay extra for these features. You just don't need it. When you've got the clutch off and you're replacing that, think about the flywheel as well. Most cars now come with a dual mass flywheel that has got an extra sprung loaded weight mechanism to smooth out out the output of the engine. And a lot of drivers are swapping that for a single mass flywheel, the more traditional solid flywheel, because it increases reliability. A single mass flywheel will theoretically never fail, whereas a dual mass flywheel can sometimes fail. But the trade-off is often you get more vibration from the engine. I'll let you debate in the comments whether you should convert from a dual mass flywheel to a single mass flywheel, because a lot of people have got very passionate opinions on both sides of the argument. Some have done it and hated it, others have done it and they've never looked back, they love it, and they've even gone to a lighter single mass flywheel, which has enhanced the engine's ability to rev more freely. As I've already said, replacing the clutch, just check the hydraulic mechanism. If it's got a clutch cable, make sure that's in good order, there's no splits on the cable has not become stretched, and it's properly adjusted. You don't want any of these old factors to accelerate the wear and tear on the new clutch, and that's happened a few times. People have had new clutches fitted, but the clutch has worn prematurely because they've not repaired the weak mechanism or the weak component that led to the early failure of the previous clutch. You may notice the slipping where the engine speed doesn't match the road speed only in higher gears, or other issues in lower gears. These can all be a sign of a clutch on its way out. You may notice the gear change is stiffer, particularly on the lower gears. First and second may be very hard to engage. The clutch biting point may be much higher. The pedal may not be depressed as much. If you've got a car with an automatically adjusting clutch cable, then you tend to have this situation where the clutch pedal is getting higher and higher all the time. I hope you found this useful. Please boot the like button. Let me know in the comments what your experience has been with clutches, whether you'll be passing this video on to a relative or a friend that's got very naughty clutch use habits. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. That really does help us to get out there. And I've lined up this video and this playlist that you should find really interesting. Thanks for watching. See you in these next videos.